Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Still focusing on the economy. How do we move things forward? We're joined now by Nnanna who is a consultant, IPC, NESG. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
But I know this is one of the focus of NESG to ensure that some of the issues that need to be addressed are done. The ones that need to be highlighted are also done so that we can identify them and move forward. But we've done several of those summits. But at the moment, how the policies that are out there, are they approaching it the way NESG has severally recommended we should focus on them?
To a large extent, yes. Again, it depends on which government. We've walked through a number of governments, and each government comes at it from a very different perspective. But to a good extent, yes. And we in NESG have also tried to evolve in such a way that we can get government to implement policies after the summit better through the creation of our policy commissions that work in between summits with the private sector and the public sector sitting in one room. We agreed on this. Where are we on it? Where are we going on it? So we've also evolved within the NESG to make it better to work with government. So to a large extent, the answer is yes. But it depends on government, each government. Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest impediment so far to moving from those policies to implementation?
3, governance structure. I think we haven't come to a point in this country where we have a governance framework that can deliver on policies. We haven't settled that yet, which is why when a government comes, even within the same political party, you see changes in the nomenclatures of ministries, mandate of ministries, different appointments. Those kind of things are not, you don't see them in the advanced economies. As a matter of fact, in a place like the US, you do not create a ministry without going through the Congress. All ministries are established by acts of Congress. But here, you have a president who come tomorrow, make a pronouncement, create a ministry. Another president will come after 4 years, change that ministry, create a new one. And all of these things have an effect on policy implementation. You create one agency tomorrow, the next day it's removed. You create another one next tomorrow. You check the advanced economies. They don't do that. So we have a problem of a governance framework in implementing policies. Secondly, we also have huge capacity constraints. Our public service, that is the domain for implementing policies, do we have our best in the public service? Essentially, we send our worst to the public service. In a place like the UK, it is first-class graduates that from Oxford and Cambridge that go to the public service. So we have huge capacity constraints within the public service to implement policies. Okay. But all of that may be improving recently. Okay. But that, if taking a look back as to how we got to where we are. The third one for me is finance. So, but again,
we'll focus on that a little bit more when we return in a moment. Join us again. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Let's take a look at that third part of your recommendation, which is finance. Break it down.
You can't grow an economy without finance is the blood of the economy. And to a very large extent, our economy is driven by the appropriation process. Every year, we wait for the budget. We make the budget look as if you don't have the budget, if you can't finance projects, you can't finance the economy. That's good. This government provides that stimulus. But what of the private sector? What policies should we put in place to enable the private sector fund those sectors of the economy that government shouldn't fund? Take infrastructure, for instance. Government should not finance, at least at this point, the maintenance and operations of infrastructure.
Like which one?
Take our airports, for instance.
It's not been privatized.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's wrong. By now, we should have moved miles away concessions that government will not be running and operating our airports. Just look at our national budget and see how much goes into managing and operating our airports. Rail operations. Why should government be spending money running rail operations? You can put the infrastructure that is huge, but there are certain rail lines that the private sector can even fund.
I think
build and run.
Yes, Build and run. There are. I mean, if you ask me, a Lagos on a rail line is a beautiful package for the private sector to invest.
Very lucrative.
It's very. But government will want to do it.
Are you saying that the government is not giving room for the private sector to run as they should?
Up until now, yes, that's where the issue of capacity comes. Because
what about where the private sector has been given room and it was messed up?
Like, well, give me an example. The private sector was giving room in telecom. Did they mess it up? Private sector, when we had the days of Nigerian Airways only, opened up to private sector. How many airlines do we have now? Give me an example. Banking sector, government was running the banks, opened up to private sector. What are we experiencing now? So, where is that example?
About that railway, I think they said there was a recent bill that was signed in the Senate.
Yeah.
Isn't that the kind of thing?
And that is why
private investors can take some parts.
That is why we in the NESG, we are at the forefront of it. We have what we now call the National Assembly Business Environment Roundtable, where the National Assembly and the private sector, NESG, MBA section on business law, and DFID are the partners. And we focused on those legislations that need to be reviewed to enable the business environment. Infrastructure key. In fact, the infrastructure bills are among the priority legislations. Real bill was there. We are happy. It's the first actually that got passed in this process by the Senate. By the time they come back from their recess, we expect the House, because we also, right now, we've rounded up the work in the House of Reps on that. NTC bill, we're trying to create a multi-sector transport regulator. A bill will handle that. We have the ports and inland waterways to open up that sector more for private.
So there is some work being done.
Yes, that's why when we hear what you said, I said yes, to a large extent.
There is some work being done.
Yes.
When do you think that most of this work